Hi, good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Dwayne Brown. A rare move for President Obama today, chairing a meeting of the United Nations Security Council as it passed a resolution intended to prevent recruitment of foreign fighters into terrorist groups like Islamic State. Former San Diegan Douglas MacArthur McLean is one example of those fighters. He was killed last month while fighting alongside militants. The UN resolution requires all nations to adopt new rules, or rather laws, to prosecute those affiliated with terror groups, target their funding as well, and share intelligence through Interpol. Now, the resolution was passed against a backdrop of continued airstrikes against militants in Iraq and Syria. But UN resolutions are difficult to enforce, and President Obama says military solutions alone aren't enough. Our Amitha Sharma has more.
There can be no reasoning, no negotiation with this brand of evil. The only language understood by killers like this is the language of force. So the United States of America will work with a broad coalition to dismantle this network of death. Ambitious reductions in our carbon emissions.
President Obama told world leaders today that the U.S. will degrade and ultimately destroy ISIS. Obama's tough language at the United Nations comes as the U.S. launched airstrikes this week against ISIS headquarters and training camps in Syria. Here with me to talk about the ISIS threat are Avi Spiegel, Assistant Professor of Political Science and International Relations at the University of San Diego, and Hanif Mohabi, Executive Director of the San Diego chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations. Professor Spiegel, you heard the president. He said that force is the only language that ISIS understands. But can bombs alone wipe out ISIS, or is a political solution required?
Great question. And the fact is, the first question is what kinds of bombs? Now, right now, the president's talking about degrading and ultimately destroying ISIS, as you said. But the rhetoric is about destroying ISIS, and the action is about degrading ISIS. An air campaign alone will not destroy ISIS. ISIS isn't a guerrilla group, a terrorist group. They will go underground. They will move around. And an air campaign alone will not do that.
So are you saying ground troops are necessary?
If you want to defeat ISIS, ground troops will be necessary, absolutely.
And what about a political solution?
A political solution is incredibly important because terrorist organizations need security vacuums to thrive, but they also need political vacuums to thrive. And unless there's a comprehensive political solution in Iraq and in Syria and in other places like Yemen and Algeria and Libya, these groups will continue to thrive.
Okay, we have another soundbite from the president.
Now, ultimately, the task of rejecting sectarianism and rejecting extremism is a generational task, and a task for the people of the Middle East themselves. No external power can bring about a transformation of hearts and minds.
So, Hanif, you heard what the president said, but in Iraq, many of the Sunnis who have joined ISIS are disaffected, unemployed, and they believe that they have been persecuted under the Shiite-dominated regime. Given those feelings, how do you get a local solution?
The local solution has to be comprehensive. It cannot be one-sided. It cannot be through essentially, this is your problem, take care of it, kind of a deal. As you mentioned, in Iraq, you have Sunnis that are being killed both by ISIS and the government. We need to go back and fix our counterproductive policies in regards to Iraq, and as well as the region itself, Syria and any other countries, in order for us to have a good solution for the future.
Avi, friends of the U.S. in the Middle East, with the exception of Israel, are dictatorships who have not treated their people very well. So with that, how does the U.S. even begin to win the hearts and minds of potential recruits to ISIS?
Absolutely. Now, in 2011, something happened called the Arab Spring, when young people stood up and marched peacefully to unseat themselves from the throes of authoritarianism. Now, we're 4 years later, almost, and 21 of the 22 countries of the Arab League are worse off. Now, this call for democracy, this call for political freedom has not been answered. And in many cases, it's been backpedaled. And the United States, again, we're in the position, as we were, it's almost like deja vu, almost like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, where we're aligning ourselves with the authoritarian leaders who are more popular in the United States than in their own countries.
I want to ask you a quick question. The U.S. wants UN member states to adopt a resolution that would allow them to prosecute people who leave their home country to join terrorist groups. How effective is that as a deterrent?
Well, this is the problem, is that there's a security problem and a political problem. So the United States has been continually short-sighted in this. So we've highlighted the security problem. Take the case of Yemen. We've followed a complete counterterrorism strategy there. But we've lost sight of the political problems there, and people are disenfranchised. And this recruitment problem is huge because you have recruits from Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco going to these countries, but then they return.
And building on that, you know, President Obama has said in places like England, people need to offer an alternative vision to young Muslims. What does that vision look like?
The alternative is real justice, real democracy, not the democracy that potentially we like or the West likes, but the democracy that the region wants. So that's very important because the majority of the people, whether in Syria or Iraq, they see things differently than how we view it. So this whole recruitment cannot be essentially curtailed unless we come up with a strategic and comprehensive political solution for not just one area, but the whole region.
Hanif, Avi, thanks so much for coming on the program.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
A recent report shows an increase in the number of homeless children enrolled in the nation's public schools. In San Diego, the number has nearly doubled. KPBS education reporter Matt Bowler is in the newsroom with the story.
At this time last year, there were 3,000 students classified as homeless attending school in the San Diego Unified School District. This year, there are 5,448. Vanessa Peters is the director of the San Diego Unified's Children and Youth in Transition Department that helps homeless children.
I mean, this has been our busiest year ever with requests for support, and I think we're seeing homelessness throughout the district in areas like Scripps Ranch where we didn't think about it, where families that were living in a normal situation or whatever you call normal, but having able to pay their rent and meet the expectations each month are no longer able to do that.
The definition of homelessness for students under this Department of Education study included students who are what's called marginally housed. That means they could be splitting an apartment with another family or even couch surfing. However, funding to help homeless children often comes from the Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, and their definition of homeless does not include marginally housed. Aid organizations like St. Vincent de Paul's Toussaint Academy, who help homeless children, want that to change. Katerina De Silva works at the Toussaint Academy with the homeless teens who would otherwise be on the street. She says St. Vincent's would like to be able to help more homeless kids, but can't because of HUD's narrow definition.
Society needs to take into account everyone and under this broader definition of homelessness, and so does HUD.
Last year, St. Vincent's helped nearly 1,000 school-aged homeless children. Matt Bowler, KPBS News.
We have an update tonight on a sexual assault investigation at Cal State San Marcos in the North County. The incident happened off campus last May, but was only reported to the public last month. Tonight, Oceanside police say DNA testing has cleared the suspect in the case. The investigation is still underway. The family of former San Diego Charger Paul Oliver is suing the NFL, blaming concussions for his suicide last year. Oliver also played for the New Orleans Saints, and the lawsuit names both teams along with the league. NFL has proposed a $765 million settlement of another suit over concussions. The settlement's already been rejected by the family of former Charger Junior Seau. Well, we are just about 6 weeks to Election Day, and candidates for San Diego's 52nd Congressional District have met in their first debate. Scott Peters and challenger Carl DeMaio squared off on a number of issues, but they also stuck mostly to familiar ground. KPBS reporter Claire Trageser covered the debate, and she joins us now. What was the overall tone of last night's debate?
I would describe it as pretty unpleasant. Peters and DeMaio were sitting next to each other, facing three reporters from NBC San Diego. The reporters tried to cover a wide range of policy issues, but the candidates kept returning to the attacks we're already seeing in their campaign ads. Here's one exchange which started when Peters said he is independent from his Democratic Party. He says that's why he was endorsed by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce.
What they don't want is Tea Party extremists, who are the kind of people who shut the government down and threaten our nation's credit rating. They see Mr. DeMaio as part of that camp.
Wait, Scott. Let's just stop right here. You want to continue to apply labels to me because you can't defend your own record. So you can call me names all you want. All right, I haven't sat there and called you names. I have issues that I disagree with you on. And there are differences in our records in the way in which we approached issues. But to sit there and say, I'm just going to call my opponent a Tea Party right-wing nutjob extremist, Scott, it's dishonest, it's divisive, and it's what's wrong with politics today.
All right, Claire, so a lot of sniping back and forth. Did they cover any real issues?
They started off talking about whether they'd support using U.S. ground troops against ISIS. Neither candidate was willing to commit to that. They also covered the health care overhaul, also known as Obamacare. Neither said they would repeal it. But there were a few differences. Here's Peters and then DeMaio.
Now, I would say that there's a lot left to do. And one of the areas where I've distinguished myself as independent is I've been willing to take votes, frankly, with the other party to fix this law. I voted to let you keep your plan if you like it. I voted to give individuals the same extension of compliance time as businesses got. I think when we saw the rollout, how that was kind of botched, that was a good vote.
There are some things I would keep about Obamacare. First, I would keep the elimination of the pre-existing condition penalty. I've never understood why that was in place. I think it's a very punitive policy that health insurance companies use to limit access to care. Second, I would allow children in college to continue on their parents' insurance if they so chose to. I would also keep health care exchanges, but I would not have government manage a website or manage the exchanges. I would allow the market to handle that.
Were there any themes that stood out from the debate?
Each candidate is trying to paint himself as moderate and the other as extreme. That's because this district is so evenly divided between Democrats, Republicans, and independents that whoever can reach the voters in the middle will win.
KPBS reporter Claire Trageser. Governor Jerry Brown is holding on to a big lead in the California governor's race. A new survey from the Public Policy Institute gives Brown a 21-point lead over Republican challenger Neil Kashkari. The survey covered several other statewide races as well. Likely voters are supporting Proposition 1. That's the $7.5 billion water bond measure by a 2-to-1 margin. And there's a much tighter race for Proposition 45, a measure allowing the insurance commissioner to review changes to health insurance rates. 48% said they'd vote yes, 38% said no, and 14% were undecided. There's much stronger support, however, for Proposition 47 to reduce penalties for some crimes. Former San Diego Police Chief William Lansdowne is a major supporter of this initiative, and right now it's favored by 62% of state voters. You can find all of our coverage of this November's races online at kpbs.org/election. California's number of declined to state voters has hit a record high. These are people who don't choose a political party when they register. They're now 23% of the electorate. Democrats and Republicans both saw a drop in voter registration since the last midterms in 2010, down about 1% for Democrats and nearly 3 points for Republicans. Two ski resorts up in the San Bernardino Mountains have a new owner tonight. The operators of Mammoth and June Mountain have signed a $38 million deal to buy Bear Mountain and Snow Summit. About 2 hours north of here, Mammoth plans to sell an annual pass for $689, good for all the resorts. They say it's the first step in the next era of skiing and riding in California. From Camp Pendleton to Coronado, San Diego's military presence remains strong. Amita Sharma has a closer look at a report we told you about last night, looking at the economic impact the military has on the county.
The defense industry remains an economic powerhouse for San Diego County. Military-related spending in this region reached nearly $40 billion in fiscal 2014. The San Diego Military Advisory Council just released a study showing that defense-related activities accounted for 22% of the gross regional product. Joining me to discuss more about the military's impact on the local economy are Lynn Reeser, Chief Economist of the Fermanian Business and Economic Institute, and Terry McGee, board member of the Military Advisory Council. Terry, current world events excluded. With downsizing, there's been a perception that San Diego's reputation as a military town is a relic of the past. How does this report refute that?
Well, I think the report substantiates how synergistic and important the relationship is between the San Diego region and the military. Synergistic from the fact that both benefit from it. For the military, this is the largest military concentration in the world in the region, and the infrastructure and training and things that are in place are impossible to duplicate any place else in the country. So it's essential for training, rebalancing to the Pacific, et cetera, and on the other side, for the San Diego region, when you talk about it being the largest economic cluster in the region and 20% of the gross regional product, that's pretty important to the region's economy. And I think the report and other things are bringing to light that San Diego is essential to the military's future and ability to train and fight.
Lynn, this report says that the military is responsible for 317,000 jobs in fields as diverse as cybersecurity, construction, engineering. In what sectors do you see scope for even more military jobs in San Diego going forward?
I think we'll see a lot of jobs created in technology, particularly cybersecurity, where that will be a major focus. Also, the military's emphasis on unmanned systems should benefit those firms. But I think there are also going to be opportunities in construction, in overall manufacturing, in retailing, really across the board, because, as you indicated, the military is responsible directly and indirectly for about 22% of all jobs, and those are across a wide array of industries.
Is ISIS a boon to the San Diego economy?
It will not be a boon. It will not be a boon for anyone. It is a major threat to the United States and to the world. San Diego will likely play a major role in helping, hopefully, defeat that threat.
Terry, this is the 6th annual report that's been produced. What's the purpose of creating a report like this? How is the information used?
Well, when we formed the San Diego Military Advisory Council, it was a group that was going to support the military in their ability to operate and train, and also for the members and their families and their quality of life. The organization quickly found that as you face challenges with the military, that if you didn't have the data that's on the economic value of the military, it weakens your argument. So in 2008, we decided to, for the first time, quantify the military impact on the San Diego region. We convened the study, and we found it to be very valuable, and a lot of people use it as the reference document, both at the local, state, federal level, both in the military and on our elected representatives. So we're very proud of the report and what it's become, and this is the 6th annual report, and it gets better every year, and Dr. Reeser does a great job with it.
And Lynn, most people don't associate the military with tourism, but according to this report, there is a strong connection between the two. Explain that connection.
There are a number of effects of that connection. Think of all the military people who are here, either active duty or civilians, and they will have family and friends come visit them, so that's one connection. Two, we have a lot of the contractors here. We'll have subcontractors from outside the region or visits by government officials, so that will be drawing in various people. And then there's a third dimension. We have various conventions and meetings, so that brings in people who often will spend a weekend with their families here. So there is a tourism dimension to the military connection here as well.
And very quickly, is there any other sector of the economy that comes close to having the impact that the military does on San Diego?
Well, certainly tourism overall, though there's this intersection, is a major potential competitor in terms of size, jobs at least. The other one, education, is a large one if you include both private and public education. But if you look at all the ramifications, which again cuts across industries, it would appear that the military is indeed the major one.
We have to end it there. Lynn, Terry, thanks so much for coming on the program.
Thank you.
A year ago, we brought you the story of homeless toddlers enduring long days on San Diego's streets. Now, a new center is open downtown, giving these little ones a safe place to learn and thrive. KPBS reporter Susan Murphy and video journalist Katie Shulov give us a look inside.
Do you want to wear the wings? Oh, you're going to do the wings? Okay.
Little Rebecca loves to play dress up at her new preschool.
You're a butterfly princess, huh? Yeah.
She flutters around her classroom wearing pink butterfly wings and a purple princess dress.
Will you get us a book?
Bright, colorful books draw her attention. At 3 feet tall, her new surroundings are huge. There's so much to learn and explore.
Oh, number 10.
The 2.5-year-old and her 10 classmates attend the newly opened San Diego Rescue Mission Children's Center.
Put it in your hand, roll.
Like most preschoolers, they're mastering Play-Doh.
Smush. Put your muscles, use your muscles.
And learning their colors.
He's what color? Purple. Purple, yay, Becca.
But these toddlers share something else in common.
We are special.
They all come from homeless families.
I'm amazed at the resiliency of these young children playing out here in the yard.
Herb Johnson is president and CEO of the Rescue Mission. The nonprofit organization runs a downtown transitional housing program and an emergency overnight shelter for women and children.
Every single night, we're housing someplace around 50 to 60 kids in this building.
But the overnight shelter is only licensed to be open from 7 at night until 7 the next morning. For 12 hours during the day, moms with toddlers and babies were on the streets, their belongings stuffed in strollers. Johnson says that's why they created the Children's Center, to provide the little ones a safe and nurturing environment.
We're so very happy that Tristan's here today.
And have, as close as they can, some sense of normalcy for what other children are going through at that age.
Okay, everybody stand up. Up on our feet. Stand up.
Much of the center's funding comes from donations and grants.
We can put our tools on the Play-Doh tray.
The support from our neighbors has been unbelievable.
Johnson says education is a big part of the program.
Right.
So that when they go to school, that they're at grade level in first grade, not behind 2 or 3 years.
It also gives moms, like Rebecca's mom, Robin Gorman, an opportunity to break their cycle of homelessness.
How many is that? 2? Yes. And so this is actually opening up just in time for me to do everything that I had wanted to do. Go to school, get my GED, get some job training, maybe even go to college.
Wow. You just want kissies?
A year ago, Gorman and Rebecca spent their nights at the emergency shelter and their days on the streets. Now they've secured longer-term housing at the Rescue Mission's Women and Children Center, or WCC.
It was just fate that I ended up going up to the WCC because I was at the end of my rope.
Gorman says she's happy to see Rebecca thriving.
Letter R for Rebecca. That's your name.
This will help her learn many skills that will be useful in school and in life.
Skills that often come harder for homeless kids.
Good dancing. Oh, so much kissing too.
Christina Serafin is director of the Children's Center.
Children that are experiencing homelessness, they just don't get the opportunity to explore their environment, to use materials, to ask questions, to be curious.
Serafin says some children have been traumatized, others have language delays and social and emotional distress.
Good job! Turn around. Okay, you may choose.
So we plan to help them get the services they need in order to overcome those challenges.
The center is currently licensed for 11 children. Serafin says the goal is to accommodate 3 times as many in the coming months. The need is high. The number of homeless families in San Diego has skyrocketed this year.
We saw a 7% increase. Our shelters were full.
Dolores Diaz is executive director of the Regional Task Force on the Homeless, which keeps an annual census on the county's homeless population. She says a lack of low-income housing and high rental costs are major factors.
There are a lot of families that come to service providers that need assistance, that are on that brink. And if something doesn't happen, we're going to see that number increase.
Diaz says one solution is a program called Rapid Rehousing.
Research shows that if you help families right when they're, at crisis point, and you assist them with security deposits, short-term rental assistance, something to just kind of kickstart rapidly rehousing them, this works for families.
We're going to make sure we all have our own space to work.
Back at the Rescue Mission Children's Center, little Rebecca is learning to share and make new friends and to take advantage of her new opportunity to soar. Susan Murphy, KPBS News.
Our friends at the Living Coast Discovery Center in Chula Vista will soon have a new wildlife ambassador. Sapphire is an endangered loggerhead turtle. She's been convalescing for more than a year at a turtle hospital in Florida. She can't be released into the wild because of breathing problems from a spinal cord injury. FedEx will fly her here tomorrow. Checking the forecast, low 80s along the coast tomorrow, getting cooler as we head into the weekend. A cooling trend ahead for the inland valleys as well. Sunny in the mountain areas, low 80s tomorrow. And there are thunderstorms possible in the desert forecast for Friday. Tonight's stories are online at kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.